Sixth season here at the campus-wide leader. And Alex, here we go.
Here we go. I'm happy to be here, man. How was your year-long vacation?
It was good. Worked on my thesis, so it's hardly like I was sitting around. And just to inform you, here at CSL, for the most part, it mirrors the ASU athletic schedule. They take a break, we take a break, they ramp it up, and so do we. The one exception is football. It's a year-round sport, and for good reason. Year number 5 for Todd Graham, and national relevance, promised many times, only delivered once, remains the elusive goal. This season, ASU finds itself in a weird place, on the fringe of national radar, but also mere theater for Pac-12 After Dark. This week, ASU has a huge test in Texas Tech. Shaky pass defense against a phenomenal pass offense. First-year quarterback trying to make sure he scores enough points to keep his team in the game. So let's hear from the two head coaches.
I think offensively, they have a dual threat quarterback, very good athlete, a great running back. Coach Lindsey, the offensive coordinator, I was a big fan of what he did at Southern Miss. He's doing a good job there, so they'll be tough to stop.
It was sluggish. It was about what you would think with a new offensive line. I thought he did a good job managing the game. He made one bad decision throwing the interception, but I like how he responded to that. I like his demeanor on the sideline.
Manny Wilkins makes start number 2 of his young Sun Devil career tomorrow at Sun Devil Stadium, and now we welcome in Troy Lynch to the studio. Troy, in order to understand what's going to happen this weekend, we have to go back to last weekend. The score, the final one, it may be deceiving. ASU, they ended up trouncing NAU, but early on it was 10-6 for a lot of the game. Why did they start off so sluggish?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, they just didn't want to show everybody what they can really do. I mean, Coach Todd Graham knew that they had Texas Tech coming up this weekend, so they really just wanted to keep things simple. They don't want to open up the playbook too much because then they're going to bring out the creative and tricky plays against a really competitive team. Granted, that NAU, they gave them a run for their money. It was just 10-3 going into halftime. Manny Wilkins with only 1 touchdown with his legs in the first half and then 4 more. Granted, most of them came in the fourth quarter, but honestly, keep the passes short. Don't get Manny Wilkins out of his comfort zone. And eventually, Arizona State, they just went on to trounce the Lumberjacks.
Well, you look at Manny Wilkins' final stat line. Not a lot of incompletions, but also not a lot of yards, not a lot of touchdowns either. And Chip Lindsey, ASU's offensive coordinator, really watered down the playbook. What can we expect from Manny Wilkins this weekend, and will the playbook be opened up a bit?
Yeah, of course it's going to be opened up a little bit. I mean, you're not going to see as many hurdles as we did last week, but you go 20 for 27. You want to limit the incompletions and 180 yards in the air and 89 yards on the ground, which actually led the team, so you can't be dissatisfied with Manny Wilkins' performance because he didn't play bad, but I mean, obviously it wasn't great either. We're going to see some more trick plays, more read options, and obviously I think we're going to see some more passes down the field and some more deep balls because their wide receiving core is very good.
Well, ASU is certainly going to need that because they go up against Texas Tech, a team that runs the air raid offense, so they're going to put a lot of points on the board. The question is, can ASU and can ASU's defense stop Texas Tech?
It's going to be so hard to stop Texas Tech because the guy who's the quarterback, you might have heard of him, Patrick Mahomes. He's a dark horse Heisman candidate. This guy has everything going with him. He's 6'3", 230 pounds, and just last week against Stephen F. Austin, he had over 450 yards in the air and 50 yards on the ground. This is a guy last year who had over 5,000 total yards. Yeah, I can see why this guy's going to be a Heisman candidate, but they did reconstruct their offensive line, but obviously a 69-17 score against Stephen F. Austin in their home opener, I mean, that kind of says something. So it's going to be super tough because obviously there are a few key components in ASU's defense missing, so they're really going to step it up. Keith Patterson, the defensive coordinator, said his defense is very confident, and he's not losing sleep, so Sun Devil fans shouldn't either.
Troy Lynch, right down the middle, like always. He'll be on the sidelines tomorrow at Sun Devil Stadium. Today, though, be on the lookout. We have more football content on the way. Megan Plain caught up with some members of the Arizona State secondary.
Football continuing here in Tempe, but Sun Devil volleyball on the road. Stevie Mussey and crew headed to SoCal not for a beach vacation, but for the Long Beach State University Baden Invitational. It's 3 games in 2 days for the squad, but a challenge the team is ready for.
All of those teams are very well coached. Long Beach State has a very, very long history of being very good, and they do things a different way, but they do things the way that Coach Jim Malero asks his kids to do them, and they do them really well at a high level. Pep is always kind of in the mix because his kids know how to play volleyball at a high level. Harvard, they took a set off Stanford last year in the NCAA tournament. Those guys know how to win and they play hard. This is only their second weekend, but they're ready to compete. They went 1-1 last weekend and they do some very good things.
New year, new show? Not necessarily. Here's a familiar face that many of you may recognize, our social media guru, Gavin Shaw. Gavin, welcome back, man.
I really appreciate it, Alex. So all three of us are seniors, and that comes with a certain veteran savvy, and I want to share that savvy with the younger generations. In that interest, our first tweet comes from a freshman. Riley Richardson, new Arizona State women's basketball player. We're gonna pass her, go on to Quinn Johnson, talking about Todd Graham. She actually ran into Todd, and Todd started telling her about his wife's new car, $150,000. And guys, I just think this is a long-winded analogy for Arizona State football. Obviously, the car is Arizona State, the garage being Texas Tech, and Arizona State's just trying to back out of Sun Devil Stadium without Patrick Mahomes dropping 5 touchdowns and 500 yards on them.
That's a solid analogy, and I'll give you props for that one. But a little known fact that people might not know about Penny Graham, her car may be worth $150,000, but I would argue her cookies are as well. At least that's via the ASU radio crew, who apparently get homemade cookies for every single home broadcast. Ethics.
Yeah, so a lesson to all the young broadcasters out there, if you make it to the top, you get cookies.
I don't know what kind of car that is, but when I was in high school, I drove a minivan. It was sweet.
I don't even know how to drive, Alex. Second tweet. Oh, now we got Riley. She's talking about her early experience as a freshman. Where you at class? Where you at the gym? She's doing all these things, guys. These are all foreign experiences for me. I've gone to maybe 3 or 4 classes over the last 4 years. Haven't been to the gym once. I know my body's deceiving, but it just hasn't happened for me yet. Has this been a different experience for you guys at Arizona State so far?
I mean, slightly. I hit the gym every now and then, but when I think about my undergraduate time at ASU, I was on the Tempe campus. That's a little bit different than down here. Would you agree?
No, I will say my freshman experience was one where I had really big eyes and I wanted to do everything possible. I was going to the gym, I was going to every class, I was buying every single book that I had to. I still do that, but we won't tell our people upstairs that.
All right, so different levels of scholastic standards for Cronkite Sports Live talent. Third and final tweet from Christian Sam back in 2013, otherwise known as the time when Northwest was just the way you got to Seattle. Christian Sam sharing some disdain for Texas Tech 3 years ago before he even stepped on Arizona State campus, saying they were going to win this game. Guys, he's not even playing Saturday, so he's not going to get a chance to back that talk up.
Yeah, and Christian Sam not playing this weekend is a huge loss for ASU. They're already banged up in the secondary. They take on a Texas Tech offense that's prolific. Without their best linebacker, I said it, best linebacker in Christian Sam, it's going to be a really tough test for them, and I'm not sure if he's going to be able to back those words up.
That's a bold claim. I mean, maybe he's Nostradamus. He could predict the future. I want to know something, though. He had very specific instructions. Save this tweet. Did you save it?
Oh, yeah, we saved it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I think regardless of how injured he is, I think Christian even if he has to come out there on crutches, I think he has to live up to those words.
That's true.
All right, Gavin, well, thanks so much for joining us. All semester long, you'll be getting a look at the most memorable moments from Sun Devil social media. But right now, on to more serious matters. We teased it earlier in the show. Here's Megan Plain with a look at the ASU secondary and how they plan to attack the Texas Tech air raid offense.
Leading up to the season, a big point of emphasis for ASU was the revamped secondary. But last weekend sparked concern when they allowed 369 passing yards to NAU. If they want to beat Texas Tech this weekend, the secondary is going to have to make some adjustments.
Just going back with Coach Graham and teaching the whole summer, just don't give up the big balls, They're the ones you can't give up that can result in long touchdowns.
Communication, taking care of vertical routes, showing up physical, being a good tackle in secondary. All those things are stuff that we communicate about daily. Pride ourselves in being physical, established in the middle of the field and letting offenses know whenever they play Arizona State, it's going to be a rough game for them.
And they spread you all over the place. So, they obviously the strength of their team is their offense and their ability to score points, and so it'll be a big challenge.
Teams that ran a pass-heavy offense proved to be a challenge for ASU last season as well. And when facing teams that run the spread, ASU went 0 for 3. Coach Rushing likes this matchup because it brings up his defense's intensity as they prepare for Saturday.
I like it because it makes me tell my secondary guys, everybody's alive this week. Don't just hone in on 1 or 2 receivers. Everybody's capable to get the ball, so you got to be on your technique and you got to be ready to go each and every snap.
This weekend we find out if ASU's secondary has what it takes to take down Texas Tech's offense. For Cronkite Sports Live, I'm Megan Plain.
It all goes down tomorrow at Sun Devil Stadium, Arizona State, Texas Tech. 7 o'clock. A high of 106 degrees is forecasted, but that's okay because Sun Devil Stadium now has enhanced airflow. You can catch it on Fox Sports 1 or the Fox Sports Go mobile app. CronkiteSports.com will also have coverage in full swing of the game.
Coming off a 3-1 home loss to Denver, ASU soccer is also on the move. This weekend, the squad will head south to Tucson. But while Arizona State relishes every opportunity to fight for the Territorial Cup against rival U of A, that's not what this journey is all about. Instead, the women's soccer team will have their radars trained on Northern Illinois and San Francisco in the U of A Cats Classic. To talk more about the Sun Devil weekend in Tucson, we bring in soccer insider Drew Andre. Drew, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Alex.
So we're going to talk ASU soccer here. They started hot, had three wins, then they eventually dropped one to Denver. But for the most part, everything has sort of gone according to plan. So tell me, aside of the loss with Denver, what else has been a surprise?
Well, I'd say overall, it's pretty much been what's expected. The first couple games this season, for the one exception of Boston College, who's a real good team, they're playing teams that they're expected to beat, and they're expected to score a lot of goals. So then we move on to Sunday against Denver, and that wasn't expected at all. Denver was supposed to be in that category of those teams that maybe just aren't quite as good as ASU. So they won 3-1. However, the Sun Devils had 20 shots in that game compared to Denver's only 6. So you can't really see that Denver really outplayed them, but the goalkeeping was the issue. Now Megan Delaney, who's normally the starting goalkeeper, she was replaced at halftime. Emma Maisel came in the second half for the starting goalie. And so right now, as we look forward, I talked to Coach Boyd earlier in the week, and he doesn't know who's going to be the starting goalie coming up this weekend. He said it's wide open.
Wide open in the keeper position, some highs, some lows. But I want to talk about highs for Sun Devil soccer. Who has stood out to you?
Well, JAZMARIE Mater, she's a junior forward, and she's been really dominant so far this year. She scored 4 goals in only 5 games so far this season. She scored four goals total in her first 2 years as a Sun Devil. So clearly she's been attacking. I talked to her last week, and she told me she's just really hungry to score, and that's been the big difference maker. She's had 18 shots on goal. So, I mean, with her leading that attack, they're looking pretty good.
Well, that's a slight teaser. We're going to hear more from JAZMARIE Mater later, but let's finish with this final question. Down here in Tucson, we have 2 great opponents for the Sun Devil soccer team to face off against. What should Sun Devil fans look forward to?
Well, I'd say you're going to see the Sun Devils play pretty well this weekend because of that loss on Sunday. I know they're going to come out really aggressive, and they're better than both University of San Francisco and Northern Illinois. So unless it's another upset, which I would assume isn't going to happen because they worked really hard this week to prevent a game like Sunday from happening, they want to get these 2 wins before they start Pac-12 play.
Drew, it's always great to have you on the show. That's my friend Drew Andre, and make sure you check in on Sun Devil soccer as they take on Northern Illinois and San Francisco down in Tucson.
November 2014, ASU Athletics receives the largest donation in department history. You may be familiar with ASU now having an NCAA hockey team. It exists because of that. A lesser-known fact, but soon not to be, women's lacrosse and women's triathlon were added to the varsity docket a year later, thanks to that same money. They didn't have to be a powerhouse for that investment to be a sound one, but in the first ever NCAA triathlon competition, 3 Sun Devils in Katie Gorzica, Charlotte Ahrens, and Delaney Bucker led the way to a first-place team finish. 750 meters in the pool, 20 kilometers on a bike, and a 5K run to finish it off. That's a Sun Devil story no one's going to be forgetting about anytime soon.
Very true.
All right, time now for The Way It Is. By now, our viewers know the drill. 90 seconds, as many questions as possible as we can get in. The goal is 3 each, so 6 total. My first one for you centers on ASU football. Manny Wilkins was the team's leading rusher in game number 1. He's also the team's quarterback. Is that a cause for concern?
Plain and simple, no. Sun Devil Nation should not be concerned. Instead, they should praise the dual threat nature of their starting quarterback. Manny Wilkins played great. Todd Graham said in this first game he wants to establish a run presence, and they did. Along with Manny, 4 other players found the end zone in run-type plays. So just be happy. On to you from the football field. Last week's football field to this week. Let's talk about Texas Tech. I want a prediction from you. Over or under 450 yards for the Texas Tech Red Raiders offense.
It's an easy answer for me. I'm going to go way over. ASU taking on an air raid offense, and Patrick Mahomes, Texas Tech quarterback, has been compared this week to Magic Johnson. In his prime, Magic Johnson, he was a big guy. He was ultra fast. Same thing with Mahomes, and ASU secondary already isn't very good, and now with injury questions, it's a recipe for disaster this weekend. All right, now switching gears a little bit, but back in 2014, ASU football teased the school, ranked number 6 in the country, and people were saying ASU is now a football school. And in the 80s and 90s, it was baseball that was stealing the entire spotlight. 2016, it's neither. Based on what we talked about earlier in the show, is ASU now a triathlon school?
That's an interesting proposition. I think ASU needs to ask themselves 3 questions in order to become a triathlon school. Number 1, is the sport easy to watch? Number 2, do I enjoy watching it? And number 3, do I feel safe swimming in Tempe Town Lake? Now, I, for one, do not. But if ASU says yes to those 3 questions, go ahead, why not? Be a triathlon school. To the soccer pitch we go. Tell me, after 3 great wins, they eventually dropped one to Denver.
Right.
Does a loss like this sort of make you pump the brakes on the season's expectations?
A little bit, but just because it was such a huge upset, but not totally. It's not a season-ending loss by any means. Like Drew said earlier on in the show, 20 shots for ASU, only 6 for Denver. They also had 2 goals that were called back because they had someone offside. To me, a really fluky loss. Now to another sport that's in season right now, ASU volleyball. 15 straight road games to start off the season. Who the heck are the schedule makers, and what were they thinking?
I really don't know, and it's definitely an interesting strategy. The only thing I can think of is if you go on a 15-game road streak and you do well, you at least find a little bit of success, what can't you overcome? It's a matter of building confidence. Let's finish this round of the way it is with a fun question. I got one for you. We're going to be talking about 2 ASU legends. Would you rather have the broadcast career of Al Michaels or the playing career of Phil Mickelson?
Well, I'm going to flip the switch on you and ask you if you saw Phil's chip yesterday at the BMW Championship.
I did.
I saw it too, but I don't remember it. Why? Because a few days earlier, Tiger Woods announced his comeback. October 13th, put it in your calendars. The greatest golfer of all time, and to me, Phil Mickelson has always lived in his shadow, and for that reason, I'm going Al Michaels.
All right. That's a very convoluted way to get to it, but I like it. Let's see who wins the way it is this round. Hey, what do you know?
This is a travesty.
New season, 1-1, baby. I love it. Let's go. Should I stay or should I go? It's a question we all must ask ourselves at some point. When I graduated from ASU 3 years ago with my undergraduate degree in hand, I answered the question, you know what, I think I'll stay. So here I am, earning my master's degree. But the problem with hanging around for too long is that you see all the changes that happen over time, whether good or bad. So now I got to get something off my chest. What's up with the double inferno? Yes, for all you youngsters out there watching, there was a time when our student section was a collective voice, congregated together in the southwest end zone of Sun Devil Stadium. We laughed together and we cried together. And believe it or not, we were capable of chanting ASU together. Now don't get me wrong, I get why the school decided to do it. Now we can loudly distract our opponents in either red zone. But believe me, it just ain't the same. So I stand before you with a request. Let's move to strike the double inferno from Sun Devil Stadium. With all the new renovations taking place, combining the two will be an easy fix. Take it from someone who has seen both sides of the spectrum. One large student section will always be stronger than 2 smaller ones. And that's the way it is. On to our top plays. Jake, go ahead, take number 3.
Yeah, play number 3 last week from Sun Devil Stadium, and ZANE Gonzalez, Wating, career high 53-yarder, first ASU field goal of more than 50 yards since 2010.
On to play number 2, we're going to go to the soccer pitch. Junior forward JAZMARIE Mater, you heard Drew talk about her earlier. She has been phenomenal so far this year. She's got 4 goals on the season, and here you can take a look at 3 of them, leading that Sun Devil soccer team.
Back to football for play number 1, and Manny Jumpman Wilkins. Juicy athleticism. Unfortunately, though, this is not going to be a case of Manny being Manny later on in the season, because Todd Graham quickly shot down the idea of Manny Wilkins hurdling defenders in games to come. He said it puts his quarterback's health in too much risk.
I mean, he's the starter for game 1. So far enough for game 2. We don't want him getting injured. I agree with that.
Well, it was a fun first show, my friend, aside from you winning the way it is.
You know, you'll get him next time there, champ.
All right, well, from all of us here at Cronkite Sports Live to all of you watching back at home, we thank you. Remember to check out cronkitesports.com for the latest news and information surrounding ASU sports. For Alex Capriello, I'm Jake Garcia. We'll see you same time, same place next week.